Welcome everyone to the I don't know what number is this
No,
podcast, but we've done a lot. It's Joe Glines, Dallas, Texas,
yeah, and Jackie, Denmark.
and today we were just discussing what we want to talk about. This is going to be kind of like a two-parter. We're going to record both today, but they'll be in two parts for you.
Mm.
The first where we start talking about it, and the other day I think it was in the webinar we were doing, Jackie, and I think actually it might have been you that mentioned it or someone else did. But they mentioned how, kind of over time, it seems to kind of appear that programs are getting harder and harder to automate, I think was the general comments. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting concept. Is it true? Do you want to respond a little to?
Yeah, I'm not sure it was me who said it precisely, but yeah, I know we've talked about the issue in general before, and with the stuff that we at least learned with AutoHotkey and finding controls in Windows, and that's an edit control, that's a text control, that's a static control, that's a button and stuff like that. And you had these control commands that can be really, really useful.
Mm-hmm.
But more and more, or less and less programs might be the right way of saying it.
Right. Yeah.
Are using these methods of building their windows anymore. So they're not as useful all the time as they once were.
Mm-hmm.
So that's at least something where you have this array of functions that you can use to control older Windows GUIs, but not so much newer ones. And that's at least one part of the issue, and we've seen a few different approaches. The accessibility library that can help you, and we've seen a few others, but they're not as intuitive, or whatever you'd call that, or at least some kind of deeper knowledge might be needed to really start using it. I don't know what else do we have.
Well, you know what? I would add to that, because some of the ones like this send message and post message or DLL calls, right? There are things that are out there, and they're not quote unquote easy. They're not, to me, like COM, right? They're not as intuitive and easy to COM, but because we have tools that will go in and allow you to drag on and see where to connect and what to do, and there's people have documented it. It's doable. The ribbon, I think, is a great one, and that has to do with that accessibility access right thing. Is we don't have a tool right now for letting us see, at least not from AutoHotkey. I have one that I found, and I don't remember the name of it, but I can drag in, I can see the stuff, and I'm like, okay, I can see how it could be useful, and we can programmatically connect to it, but no one has built a library around it yet that we can start leveraging, and that's where I think it's a part of it is just how quote unquote easy it is, like COM is, but it's also just there's no tools actually, like the Internet Explorer is going away. COM is not in Edge, and of course then they actually got rid of the Internet Explorer kind of thing, right? Went to Chrome within Edge.
Yeah, they're using the Chromium engine or whatever you call that, backbone. So yeah. I think it's probably the correct thing to do on Microsoft's part. Just
So think about the resources and everything they're saving, right? I mean, that's
they probably they had a decade or more where COM was probably one of the most powerful things in Windows programming, but at least from our point of view, right? Of course, if you were even better at memory and programming and function and whatnot, you could probably find other more powerful ways of doing stuff, but it at least made sense.
No, go ahead. I have a different something to say. You can finish.
Yeah, but I think I lost.
Okay, I killed it. Great. Yeah. So I wanted to take us back, because the other thing I thought of was years and years ago, right? When there was no Windows and Microsoft actually came out And I don't know, who knows, like, I don't know when the actual Windows API type of thing came about, but I do, from reading, right, I wasn't programming at all then, but I do understand, like, Windows allowed other programmers to come in and leverage, connect to their API, create your message boxes, create, a lot of the GUI stuff, right? And when programming was new, that was a brilliant part for Microsoft, right? We're going to open this up and let other people leverage our guts. And that was a really big thing, like 20, 30 years ago, however long ago, right? But nowadays, I think it's like everyone has their own, there's so many other things that are changing all the time, and so people just aren't using the things built for Microsoft. And then, of course, they have their own ways, and hopefully, now here's where I have, before we get into our next, breaking this off into the next one, what I'm wondering is the fact that the world, so to speak, is seeing more and more people trying to do robotics process automation type stuff. Might we see some software developers try to actually bring back some things to make it easier to build plugins and interact with, right, type of stuff? I hope so.
It's one thing to hope for. That's correct. And COM, the COM object module, or whatever that stands for, was kind of like, if it was built that way, you, as a programmer, even deeper down than us, would know that if the beginning of the structure was here, then the next part. So it was something that was made for programmers, and it made sense for Microsoft to have a specific model to make their programs or their coding structure in, so that other people in Microsoft could program for it. So you could have more programmers working on the same project, and that in turn meant that other people could more easily leverage it. But now that you have these both more developed languages and many more people able to code and many more ways to achieve the same things, you might not have the same need. You have great tools to collaborate on or you buy, and by having those, you don't need to have the same model in your memory structures and stuff like that, because everybody is already keen to how it's done.
Yeah. The one hesitation I would say, or I don't know what the right word is for this one, is if I was one of these computer companies, I'd be like, hey, is the language we're using, is it just a fad? Is it something that we're going to get in here and then have to swap out and have people who, they get tired because depending on what version of the program you're trying to work with, it keeps changing and what's being used, right? So that's the one thing I agree with everything you said. It's just at the same time, hopefully, they give it a little forward thought of longevity actually is a strength, right, of keeping things consistent.
I think it's probably a part of the rest of what humanity does, and I'm saying humanity just to make it really, really broad, is that we learn more and we make it more and more complex, and we make tools to make it simpler, and then we make it even more complex, and then we make tools to make it simpler, and then it keeps going. And
I love it, Jackie.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
so. I'm looking at the time, so we wanted to divide it up kind of equally. So, so what I wanted to bring back in was where we thought the second part one on its own, but I want to intro it here was, like Edge is a perfect example. Edge from Microsoft, the browser, the way at least it was being built, didn't have a COM backbone. However, we noticed you could do WinHTTP requests, like COM object connections to it, and trigger some stuff. And that was something I think mentioned in the webinar. This is why I think you said it, was because I know you bring up Office 365, right?
Yeah.
And how when the software isn't run locally, how you actually interact with it changes drastically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it becomes a server-side thing, and it's localized. Most of the calculations and stuff are done online on a server somewhere, and then you have some power done within the browser, but it's not Excel. You simply don't have VBA is not even a thing.
Okay,
So
we're gonna stop. We gotta leave people with a teaser and leave them hanging for a week. Okay, so don't do too much. So let's go ahead and stop this, and we'll start the next one here.
yeah,
Re-introing. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
yeah. Bye.